Jit Camp Bonfire Podcast, Ep.11. And today I'm here with a very special guest. We shouted him out on the last episode with Laurent, and today I'm here with Raheem, the abstract poet.
You know, that is me.
How you been, bro?
Man, things have been great, you know. Life's going well. You know, sometimes when you turn your head in and focus, it can be scary, you know. Turning away from, like, toxic shit is, like, hard to do, but then, you know, you end up reaping the benefits of it eventually, you know. And once you do that a few times, it becomes way less scary, just like anything, you know. Like, during Ramadan, I fasted from alcohol, and now I feel like I could, like, really take on a lot of different stuff. I feel like people don't realize just how good taking a break from something that, not even that you really do all the time, like, helps stuff, you know? Like, because it's not like I stopped drinking because I had a drinking problem, but I just wanted to try something out, like, try to eliminate one of my vices for a month, you know what I mean? Like, it's not easy. But, you know, I just been in focus mode, man. Making art. The art show happened. The damn opening was insane, you know, people came out. Jit Camp copped a shirt, you know what I'm saying? Like, things have been going well for me, you know, and I think once I started really accepting that like, things are going well, you open up a little more room for yourself. You know, you got to have faith in yourself. I always say betting on yourself is the hardest thing to do, but the most successful thing you can do, you know, so.
Absolutely, bro. So let's talk a little bit more about the usual suspects. The art showcase, it was last weekend at the factory, or a couple weeks ago at the factory.
It was May 6th,
May
2022.
6th. Yeah, bro. So let's talk about it. You had an all-star lineup in my article for it. I called it like basically Tampa Bay, St.Pete Avengers teaming up.
No cap, man. Honestly, you know, on surface level, it was me being like, man, like, okay, I've been hanging out with homies who are all my creative peers, but, like, you know, a lot of times it feels like you have pressure to create with people, you know what I mean, who you're friends with. And so that can be really, like, you know, it adds a lot to it. Like, I made a lot of new friends over the last few years after kind of taking a break from being friends with anybody but just, like, Laurent, you know. And I kind of just wanted to find a way to bring all these people together and use, like, I always say that, like, it's funny you say the Avengers thing, but I say, like, hanging out with people who make art is like being at the X-Men house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's superpowers come up until it's time. You know, we all start talking about how we want to make an idea, and then, you know, if people know how to do one thing, it just becomes a little tool. Like, you know, Takeo knows shit about screen printing, so when I was trying to print my shirts before the show, he dropped off a fucking heat gun for me and, you know, gave me a real quick tutorial. You know what I mean? And then I screen printed the shirts I sold at the show for the first time. You know, that was my first screen printing experience, you know what I mean? So it's just when you have friends that can help you, you use them. And then when you have, like, always say, you know, I know I'm the person who can talk the easiest, who's the most social. So sometimes I feel like if I can use the stuff I have, like, with Laurent, I've always felt like if I can be like, you know, Naruto has more chakra than everybody else, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If I know I could put that battery in my back, like, no matter what, no matter how tired I am, no matter how fucked up, down bad I feel, like, as long as I can, you know, keep going with this art shit and stuff, like, that show just shows me what I can do. Like, you know, I've always wanted to be like a ASAP Yams, like, type motherfucker who, like, brings people together and has that vision. And it's really cool being able to, like, get to this point where, you know, I feel like my art is maturing. Like, for example, you know, one of the people in the show, Robert Glardo, and, like, James or Data Synced, who did the DJing thing, it was, like, cool to be accepted by the people who, when I moved to St. Pete, they were like, I was like, yo, like, I'm trying to not necessarily exactly be on what they're on, you know what I mean? But they're doing shit that I want to eventually do. For example, like, when I was 19 and I first moved here, I met Gallardo and I met James, and I was like, damn, okay, cool, like, you know, it's calm, like, my turn's coming soon to do the things I want to do, and then to be kind of accepted by those people who I used to look at as the cornerstones of, like, what was happening around here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's dope, and to have them be a part of my thing and, like, all that stuff is cool. It just feels like things are changing. You know, me and Laurent have been making art together for a while, you know, and by making art, it's both, like, literally collaborating, but being there, like, that collage shit I was doing for a long time. I always say, like, I miss when, like, only Laurent gave a fuck about him, because, like, in the original days, like, if I'm making art, Laurent's right there, and I'm like, yo, bro, look at this shit. You know what I mean? And eventually the look at this shit became what everybody saw on my Instagram, you know, became what Abstract Poet was known for or whatever, you know what I mean? And so it's just really interesting to be able to, you know, get this, like, the fruits of my labor. Like, people would always say, like, I'm on some shit, like, in a good way, you know what I mean? They'll be like, yo, like, you know, you doing different shit. But I feel like that show was the first time, like, you know, not just on some, like, people saying it because it sounds cool to tell someone, like, they're going up. But now it's like when people say shit, I could tell they really are like, damn, you know, Raheem, you're really on some shit, you know?
It's up.
And so, or like, even I was talking to Chad yesterday, you know, and he was like talking about how on New Year's, on one day, Laurent used to live downtown on one of them little fucking way too much money ass apartments with the rooftop and shit and the pool, you know? And we went up there for New Year's, and, you know, he was just like, bro, like, it's your time to turn up. And then, you know, I've been turning up, you know what I mean? Just working hard, staying focused. Once I got the studio, that kind of rolled into this idea of like, okay, like, instead of waking up and my only responsibility is to smoke weed, you know what I mean, and make some art at my crib, like, I get up, go to the studio every day at 12, you know, sometimes 11, depending on what I have to do, you know, as far as my art shit goes, you know what I mean? Like, I typically go to Bandit Coffee, get my coffee. I might, like, the week before the show, what I was doing was going to Bandit, reading, smoking a spliff, finishing my coffee, go to the studio, you know, finish up the paintings that then got shown at the end of that week, you know, prepared everything, got everything together. That was like my ritual. That's why that Dick Gregory book was in the glass box, because that was like the final like influence on the show was that book, reading his book about social commentary from 1968. Dick Gregory is great. Shout out to him. Do your Googles, you know, if you don't know already. But, you know, pretty much just being able to have the people that were involved in that show, like Scott even, like, you know, we talked about Scott Fisher on the last episode with Laurent. But, you know, he's a good homie of mine, and, you know, he's got a lot of interesting shit going on. I'm glad that he was able to show some of his art publicly for the first time at a show I curated. You know, like, that was beautiful just to be able to curate a show with such good art, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like all the art in there was fire, you know, like,
Oh, yeah.
people didn't have to go to New York to see some good art, you know, like, for me, I think about, like, when I was a kid and I lived here before I moved to Atlanta, like, St.Pete didn't really have shit going on like that, you know, and I feel like moving to Georgia and opening my eyes to different things, seeing art as a thing that's accessible to black people, like, shit like that, you know, makes me want to, I think about my nephew who, like, lives in St. Pete, and, like, he's getting into art, and, you know, I'd be putting him on, like, Jackson Pollock and shit, but, like, him, kids his age in St. Pete could have came to my shit and saw, like, what is possible. You know, like, I wanted Scott to put those Viola things in there because fuck if anybody buys those, but, like, motherfuckers got to see that shit, you know what I mean? Like, Laurent cigarette box, like, people ain't doing real pop art, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to, like, big up Laurent or nothing, but, like,
He snapped.
that shit is different, bro. Like, it's a cigarette box. Like, 15% of the motherfuckers who came to that art show, excuse my language, probably had that American Spirit pack, you know what I mean? Like, most of my ex-girlfriends smoked that pack of cigarettes, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how, like, deep-rooted that thing is just on social commentary aspect. But then, you know, I compared it, during the artist talk, I compared it to Andy Warhol's Brillo boxes, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know, like, that's real art. Like, who cares if that shit sells? We doing it for real. You know, I remember during the pandemic, me and Laurent and Chad were going to do an event with PBR, and, you know, of course, they were like, yo, like, that shit's chopped, like, you know, because COVID. You know, I remember we were gutted, of course, but I remember being like, man, ain't no fucking pandemic stopping, like, the thought we put into our art, like, if you want to call it manifesting or faith or whatever, like, nigga, like, no virus is going to stop me from going stupid. And I feel like I went dumber than ever during the pandemic, you know what I mean? Like, it was just crazy, but we was thinking about, yo, like, what do we do? Like, fuck it, let's do some free shit. We never got around to doing it, but we were going to do an event in that abandoned building on Baum Avenue and just have a free art show, like, paint art, put art on the wall, and just let people come see it, you know, because I think nothing could stop this shit. Like, they stopped church and art shows and shit for the pandemic. Like, fuck all that, you know. And I'm not like a anti-vaxxer or discounting how serious that was, but I just feel like what's powerful is powerful. What people, you know, even in, like, depression times, like, people need, like, fellowship and art and like to be able to come together like this, you know what I mean? It's just different, you know, and that's how I feel about it. Like, I'm glad the show went well, you know. Of course, like, Bailey's oil paintings were great. Like, I wanted to have a well-rounded show where there was stuff that people could come see and be like, yo, like, that's fire. Like, you know, my sister bought a print of the oil painting Bailey did of me for my mom for Mother's Day, which was super dope. Yeah, so I'm glad that, like, one of the things is, like, sure, like, that show said Raheem Fitzgerald on the top in big-ass bold letters, you know, but it said His Usual Suspects featuring these people, and I'm glad people came and supported my supporting cast, you know what I mean? Like, people at the show came and bought stuff from the artist in the other studios, and, like, that's what I really wanted. You know, for me, I sold 4 paintings so far, but, like, I'm not going to rest until, like, Laurent sells a painting, you know, or Laurent sells more prints. Like, he has prints of the American Dream painting. You know, like, that's what a real curator is supposed to do. You know, we got a lot of, like, I hate to say it like this, but in St. Pete, it's a bunch of people throwing 40 people on a wall and, like, pretending like that's doing something for them, you know?
No, I'm with you, man. Like, those events, like, it's more about, you can't really connect with the artist that way. It's kind of just like, oh, here's a whole bunch of stuff. You don't have time to really, like, take it all in, you know?
Yeah, and it's, like, low-key disrespectful to, like, people who, like, what's messed up is I be feeling like, man, I got the power to bow out of a show right now, like, you know what I mean? Something at one of these galleries, like, because of, you know, the gallery space I work with, things like that, I have the privilege to do that. But there's people in St. Pete who are trying to, like me 4 years ago, was trying to get in these doors and, like, to see, like, the opportunities and, like, shit being kind of squandered or people being low-key taken advantage of by being convinced by people who have, like, stake in the art world in St. Pete, like, kind of just doing what they do. And, you know, no disrespect to anybody who's doing their thing. You know, you can't knock the hustle, but it's just, that's what it is, you know? Like, I can't bastardize art, you know, because I care about different things than maybe some of these people. Because I care about, you know, the other day, I seen, like, 3 black kids, like, about to get on the little scooters downtown, and I was like, I'm making art for them to come see, like, not to make some fucking money. You know, like, of course, like I said, like, me and Bryce was in the store just now, and I was like, damn, man, like, I sold my most expensive painting I've ever sold yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, when I told my roommate, or, like, he's like my brother, Jacob, who I live with, you know what I mean? I was like, bro, like, I really believed in myself enough that people were like, yo, bro, here's $1,500 for something you made. You know what I mean?
That's so awesome, man.
And
congrats, bro.
Thank you, bro. And I think believing in yourself is really powerful, man. Everybody out there, just bet on yourself, you know, if you can, you know, because that's all you got, really. You know, the power and the faith you have in yourself is what make people believe in you. You know what I mean? I wasn't always, like, the most well-dressed, well-rounded person, but people still saw, like, the faith I had in myself. Like, my peers who believed in me up to the point where, like, now I'm comfortable enough and confident enough to talk on a podcast about my work, things like that. Like, I really thank people for that, you know?
So how did you meet Laurent? Because I know he wasn't originally, like, from here. You were saying that you moved here, but did you live here originally and then, like, moved to Atlanta?
So I lived here up until 5th grade, you know, and then I moved to Georgia. Definitely a really cool eye-opening experience. I think it showed me a lot about the world, especially because I didn't really realize what good or bad neighborhoods were. I didn't understand the concept of what the hood was because shit, like, that's just some of the shit I saw a lot, so I just normalized it. And when I would go, it was funny, when I would go to the hood in Atlanta, I'd be like, damn, this shit look like St. Pete. You know, but I was confused because where we moved in Atlanta was, like, a nicer area. Like, shit got upgraded when I moved to Georgia, you know what I mean? Like, my mom went up there, she transferred from her job to Georgia, and, like, you know, shit was different. And she wanted an apartment close to her job, and her job was in one of the better areas in Atlanta. So, you know, long story short, you know, some years passed, probably almost like 9 or 10 years, and then I graduate high school, you know, and we moved back to St. Pete. You know, anybody who personally knows me, maybe we'll get into all the rest of that shit, but for time, you know, long story short, end up back in St. Pete. Definitely didn't expect, like, all this shit to happen. I was ready to go back to Atlanta in 3 months, you know what I mean? Like, that was the plan I had. You know, and being fresh out of high school, I didn't go to college, I didn't go to any art school or anything like that, so what's fucked up is I was like, damn, do I want to thug it out here in Atlanta or just kind of, like, figure it out in a place that's kind of like a little bit of a home base, you know? Unfortunately for me, it all worked out, you know, like, my dad, who since passed away, like, I happened to move back here and be right down the street from where he was at. And like, fortunately for me, like if I stayed in Atlanta, I would have just got a phone call one day that my dad's dead, instead of like, being able to go see him almost every other day up until he passed. You know what I mean? Shout out to my dad. It was fucked up, man. During the show, I was like, damn, dude, like this shit is dope. Like I said on the post before the show, your IG crush was gonna be there. They were. I was looking at all this stuff. Like, I was selling art. I was like, ooh, I made some money. I'm looking at all these people enjoying themselves. Everybody came out in their nice outfits. But I was like, damn, dude, my dad's not here. But then later on that night, shout out to Lilith Lex. Her and some friends and I were talking. I was telling her and her girlfriend about it. And they were like, yo, but like maybe your pops had like the best view of the show. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like, and that shit really cheered me up. But, fast forward a little bit out of that, I used to go to this art gallery called Misu 360. That shit's kind of how I, like, got my whole art thing started, at least in the sense of people knowing me connected to art, because I was selling art, other people's art at first, and just making connections, and then I started putting my art out publicly. But long story short, like, Misu really embraced me. Like, Chad and his sister Gio, like, they really put that, like, thought in my back, like, fuck what everybody else is saying. Like, I know you're like weird and insecure, but like that shit is gonna pay off. Just like stick with us, like. And it was cool to see older people, like older versions of myself, Caribbean background, all that shit, like doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I went there and bro, like I was in high school on Tumblr looking at the NERD Complex magazine covers and shit, and then to go somewhere and that shit's just on the floor for me to look at. And I remember just sitting on the floor my first day there and being like, what the fuck? Like, this shit is dope. Like, bro had like all 3 Yeezy Louis V shoes in there. He had the Patchwork Don signed by Ye. Shit like that. Like, opened my eyes up. And then
it's crazy for like St. Pete. Like, you wouldn't expect something like that.
Fuck no. Like, and all of that was off of me taking a different route to get downtown. Like, long story short, I moved here. I was staying with my brother, and he was like, yo, like, you're at home all the time. Like, you don't have any friends? I'm like, no, nigga, like, I just moved here. Like, I don't know anybody besides my 5th grade best friend, who we both have got our own lives since 5th grade. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so, I used to just go to Misu every day. And then I started doing stuff with them. And one day, me and Chad is we'll call him Sam for the sake of Chad from BTS. Yeah. So OG Chad, Big Chad, we'll call it, whatever. Me and him are standing outside Misu, and like we see this fool like walking up with a yellow cardigan on and like some fucking checkerboard Vans. They were red checkerboard Vans, and we're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, in our head, like, he looks pretty cool. Like, what? I wonder if he's about to say something to us. Bro walks clear past us into the gallery and starts chopping it up with Chad's sister, Gio, who was the like mastermind behind Me Too 360, which means mixed emotions. Fuck, damn, it's been a while. We gonna have to cut that out because I'm supposed to know that, but it's all good. Oh, mixed emotions, stress the universe. Boom. Yeah. It's like that shit. They're like my family. Like, I haven't always had the best relationship with my blood relatives, but they're people who was like, yo, bro, like, family is something different. So, I remember him talking to Gio, me and Chad was like, oh shit, okay, cool. He was going in the gallery, like, that's dope, that's what we want. And end up talking to a guy in a yellow cardigan. His name's Laurent, you know what I mean? And so then, like, after that, me and Laurent kind of became like this. I remember there was a vest I used to wear all the time, and I remember the first time I hung out with Laurent, we went to a bar and he was like, what the fuck, you can smoke cigarettes inside in Florida? That's grimy as fuck. But we were taking a picture in the alley and I was like, bro, like, let me wear that vest. And he was like, you can have that shit. Like, at this time, Laurent lived right by Goodwill, so he went to Goodwill every day. He's like, bro, I got this shit for $1. Like, that's you. And that was like my like kit for a while. Like, now the whole abstract poet fit is like the white tee, black pants, like shit. The uniform. But at that time, it was whatever I was rocking and then that fucking vest over it. Some people probably remember those days. Vest, necktie, that dude, but I got that shit from Laurent. And like ever since then, like, me and Laurent have kind of been just locked in. Like, that show was beautiful because, like, he posted some shit that said we came a long way from eating like $2 a slice pizza, you know what I mean? Because me and Laurent, like, we laugh now that things are going better, but like shit was fucked up, me and Laurent wasn't always running around with Louis Vuitton bags and shit. Like, niggas was trying to figure out where we was going, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is next to eat? Where are we getting the money for that? You know, and like, after I DJ'd Indie Flea the other night, or whatever that was, you know, we went to a restaurant and, like, with everybody, and we were like, bro, like, there was a time where we would have been like, all right, we'll see y'all at the bar later, you know, because, like, spending money on a meal that costs as much as damn near how much you were planning to spend on food the whole week is, like, some different shit, and, like, sometimes I'm getting used to, like, normal shit, but it's just pretty wild, you know, like, Laurent's, like, my brother, you know, like, pretty much ever since I met that dude, we kind of been locked in, and kind of, like, anytime, I remember, bro, like, anytime I would get, like, weird before an art show, I'm like, I don't want to do this one, I'd be like, no, bro, like, go fucking do that shit. You know, like, forever, like, Laurent has been the person to be like, yo, like, don't quit. And even when the roles reversed and I was able to be like, yo, Laurent, nah, bro, like, this shit is going up, I got us, you know. And I feel like that show is like me being able to be like, yo, bro, what I tell you, you know, swear down, listen to me, fam, you know. And so Laurent is, like, my guy, you know what I mean? We're, like, you know, fucking, if you ever seen the movie Shatas, we're, like, the two main characters on that, Wayne and Biggs, you know, like, Laurent is the guy that, like, you know, besides my childhood homies in Atlanta, you know, if I ever had to buy matching paddocks with somebody, it's going to be Laurent, or my bro Javon, you know, from NHO, you know what I mean? Like, shit like that is, like, you know, that's my dog, like, for life, you know, probably, like, and even, you know, like, I remember Laurent made a joke about cutting my hair, and I was like, bro, like, that's the only thing that would make me put my hands on you. Like, you're my best friend, and I would never fucking do that. But if you ever, like, tried to prank me by cutting one of my dreads off, I would punch you in your shit. But, like, that's, like, some brotherly love shit. Like, me and Laurent could never fall out because it's just, like, Hove said, like, you know, when somebody's your brother, you know, y'all have your tiffs, but that shit don't even go public. Like, you'll never hear about me saying, fuck Laurent. You know what I mean? Even if me and that nigga get into a fist fight, like, on some YG and DJ Mustard shit, like, you know, you'll see the post of us posted up in front of the Maybach. You know, you won't see a video of a fight. You know, you won't see no bullshit like that. You know, no internet beefs. Like, that's really my friend, and we're locked in, and it's crazy. Like, he just got engaged recently to someone who I grew up with. Like, my roommate who I talked about earlier, Jacob, his sister, Scarlett. And I remember when bro met Scar, and I was like, damn, I've known her, like, since I was a Jit. So it's crazy, like, Laurent's, like, my family for real. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like, on Easter, like, me and Laurent put out fucking Easter eggs for the kids, like, that were at Easter at Scarlett's mom's house. You know, shout out to Mary. You feel me? And so, you know, I knew Laurent through art, and then we just kind of, like, if there was nowhere to rest, me and Laurent leaned our backs on each other. You know what I mean? Like, and we became the table, like in Forrest Gump, how they kind of, like, leaned on each other. Like, we was like Bubba Gump and Forrest Gump, you know what I mean, type shit. You know, but that's my dog. And, you know, there ain't really much to say besides that. Like, anytime I've ever said this, like, no offense to anybody, but there's been times where I said that's my only friend because, like, you know, anybody, like, if I'm in a jam, that's the person who I could call, and he not going to be like, blah, 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 unless he know it's possibly, like, I would never ask him for money for some fuck shit, but, like, you know what I mean? Laurent wouldn't ask questions. He would just move and then be like, are you on some dumb shit later? You know?
So how did you, I know you were in a lot of the early shoots for, like, Pins and Pluses, and then you guys eventually collab more on Before the Storm. So how did that all, like, come together?
So, you know, Laurent has always had multiple brands, and, like, it's been on some, you know, like, I would say with Pins and Pluses, I just support Laurent in any way I can, so I'll model or whatever, or be the model for that. And so Pins and Pluses was just a brand that Laurent created as, like, a high fashion vibe. And, you know, like I said, when I started making my art, Laurent's always there, so he's always going to be a person who I ask for input from, and vice versa. So a lot of the early Pins and Pluses stuff, I was just there. You know what I mean? Like, you usually use your friends as models because they're usually always there. You know, they're usually always around. So it's like, we don't got time to ask anybody else, Raheem, put on this shit. You know, it's like that really cool picture of them fixing the sweater on me is like a perfect, like, Pins and Pluses into BTS move. Like, the last, I want to say, transitional thing was the Night in the Country stuff that we did. I want to say Aloft. Shout out to, it used to be Mew, but now it's Archive. You know, shout out to Archive.
Shout out to Archive.
And we did a thing at Aloft during one of their fashion events, and it was really cool. I walked for that, and then eventually the BTS thing came around, and Chad came around because it was like we met someone who was like, damn, like, you know, everybody say they want to lock in, but he's willing to be there with us, you know. If I turn my head to the side, like, he's still over there working, not like waiting for me to be like, yo, bro, what's the move, you know? And like, it isn't always easy to find that, so shout out to Chad, because he was like one of the first people I accepted as a friend in a while, especially. But, you know, when it comes to the Pins and Pluses, BTS, like Pipeline, like, it always has been like a thing where ideally BTS was supposed to be like how skateboarding has like distribution companies, like Baker Boys is fucking Baker, Death Wish, and like others, and now Illegal Civ. You know, we wanted to create something like that where it was like Conceal United, which was Chad's thing, Pins and Pluses, and then NHO. But Laurent kind of turned before the storm into his own new project at this point. Excuse me. You know, that's kind of where the whole Pins and Pluses BTS thing came. I look at it like, you know, Pins and Pluses was when Chad and Laurent like kind of came together for a moment, and I'll be just there. And of course, the influences matter, but it's not a part of it. But then BTS is like, you know, NERD versus the Neptunes. Like, I think NERD is just the Neptunes when Shay is there to throw in a little extra some shit. You know what I mean? Like, for me, for BTS, I was Shay, and Chad and Laurent was Chad and Pharrell. You know what I mean?
I got you. So let's talk more about NHO. I know you just did. You said it was like your first actually T-shirt that you've dropped for the brand, right?
Yeah, and like, it's kind of like more of a getting people ready for what I'm doing. You know what I mean? People don't follow anything that's not a movement. People bought those shirts like, yes, that cherub look cool, but it's like what that cherub means and what they're supporting. Like, that $35 is going towards like a guy who's trying to uplift the community around them. You know, that $35 is going towards me inspiring that kid who like realizes, oh shit, like, this is for me. I can be a patron of the arts. You know, that shit isn't just for anybody who's like stuffy and rich. That shit's for me too, you know? You know, and so NHO is just something that it started off as like one of my best friends, Camille, on her Tumblr, like, she had the words narcotics half off at the top of her shit. And I remember being like, Camille, like, that's so dope. Like, I really like that. And, you know, it was just kind of a joke between me and her. And one day we're sitting out there. If y'all from Atlanta and you're watching this, you would know where Sidney Marcus in Piedmont is. And like outside that Starbucks on Piedmont and Sidney Marcus by the Target and the Home Depot and shit. Me, Javon, and Mike, kind of like the founding members of NHO, and Jacob, but not the Jacob I live with. This is Young Scrap. Shout out to him. He has a tape company called Forest Resignation Records. You know, if you ever need your tapes published, shout out to them. You know what I mean? Like cassette tapes for your music. But long story short, we sitting out there, and I'm like, the brand is going to be called Narcotics Half Off. You know? And I remember them being like, that's kind of hard. You know? And ever since then, it's just been NHO. You know, for life, man. I mean, I got that shit on my arm, you know?
Hell yeah.
And now it's just basically like, you know, now every day I wake up, I have to do something that forwards NHO, because when I look down right there, like, I can't let that shit flop, because niggas going to be like, in 20 years when this shit's still right there, what's NHO? You know what I mean? So it's so interesting because it's called Narcotics Half Off, and that's like kind of taboo, but now I've been saying that to some of these interesting individuals I end up around, like the mayor of St.Pete I've talked to about Narcotics Half Off, and that's like kind of out there, you know? And so it's gotten more mature. Like in those Felix the Cat paintings I did, it's Felix winking and pointing up at 50% off, you know? That's like Narcotics Half Off right there. You know, so it's more subtle now, and like NHO is a lifestyle company, you know? And it's for people like me and you and everybody out there listening, just like something for you to believe in. You know, I want to make that thing that gets those like 4 teenagers hyped because they know about the same shit, and now they're all best friends. Like when my homie Jalen, aka Alo, you know, the way we met was I had on like these shoes, and he was like, bro, you got the Jordan 8 blah 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 blahs on. And then ever since then, that's been my dog, you know. And I was like, yeah, bro, I remember, you know, I remember on your birthday the other day, we weren't friends yet, but I was like, you got that new G-Shock. I saw that, like, your mom came and dropped off the G-Shock. And, like, if y'all don't know what G-Shocks are, they're a watch. But when I first moved to Atlanta, that was, like, the shit. That was, like, the middle school rollie.
Even here, bro. It was like a middle school rollie here.
Bro, I had that. I remember my brother and shit. I remember when I first moved to Atlanta, I came back for the summer. And I was saving up all the money I made that summer to go back and get that G-Shock. When I went back for school, you know, I remember being like, man, like, niggas didn't get it. Like, I wasn't getting a haircut. I wasn't doing shit, you know.
I'm getting a G-Shock.
I'm getting that G-Shock, nigga. And I remember, like, you know, buying a G-Shock with my own money. You know what I mean? My other friends, like, y'all parents might have bought you the G-Shock, but you feel me? I remember end up sweeping at a barbershop and caught the G-Shock. You know what I mean? Got the rest of the bread to get the G-Shock. You know, that shit was like $1.50 if you're a middle schooler. That shit is like dropping 10 bands for me right now, you know, on a rollie. So, you know, that was just that. But NHO is just, you know, a lifestyle brand, kind of like a coming-of-age movie. But if it was a tangible object or multiple tangible objects, like from lighters to a glass to, you know, a phone case, like something that can make anything. But, you know, I just wanted to create something that's like for those people who I used to be, you know what I mean, who I still am, but like things change, you know what I mean, you know, you're less insecure, like things like that, you know, for who I was inspired by, you know what I mean, or who I used to be around, you know what I mean, like NHO is just something for the youth, you know what I mean, like, I don't know, it's just always going to be like that. I feel like forever it's going to be a thing that's ingrained in me, like who knows what I make in the future, but NHO is always going to be there, kind of like as Off-White is to V, that would be what it is. That's for me, because, you know, Off-White is kind of a weird name, you know, it's talking about crack, you know what I mean, like,
yeah,
you know, so same concept, like R.I.P. Virgil, obviously, you know what I mean,
R.I.P. Virgil,
low-key, like, that shit is so crazy. I'm trying to, like, be there, you know what I mean, I want, you know, kids to be like, the way I looked at Virgil, like, you know, V even said, find 4 people who you're really inspired by and then go as hard as you fucking can to get noticed by them. Like, you know, of course Virgil died, but sometimes I'd be sad that a lot of these visionaries die. Like, I would love to have, like, you know how niggas on Twitter be like, top 5 dead or alive dinner party. You know, I would love a dinner party with, like, Keith Haring, Verge, you know, and then, like, no one ever thought about this, but, like, you invite Keith Haring, so that opens the door to a lot of the other motherfuckers you might want to get in there, but I need Keith Haring there because, you know, that's some of the people who really inspired my whole art shit. When I was in, like, 6th grade, my art teacher taught us about Keith Haring, and I was like, damn, like, this shit is fire. And then I went and Googled Keith Haring, and I was like, oh, he got more shit. You know, so I remember, you know, by the time 9th grade comes around, the Obey Keith Haring collab comes out, and I copped the hoodie. I'm like, I still got that shit, you know. There's a bunch of pictures if you scroll back on my IG of me with that Keith Haring hoodie on, but, you know, it's like, you get Keith Haring, now you got George Condo and Basquiat coming to your dinner party. You get Virgil, you know, then some musicians or some shit. You know, obviously you got to throw Jimi Hendrix and Tupac in there.
Yeah, you got to have Pac there.
You know, got to have Pac. Shout out to Pac, you know, All Eyes on Me, beautiful album, you know. R.I.P. to Pac, I always feel like people like him and Nipsey and people who speak with real conviction, even like what I'm saying now, like God bless the dead, you know, or God bless me if I die. Like, I feel like the shit I say, people are going to remember, you know. The people I've, like, been with intimately, like, whether it's a romantic relationship or, like, best friends, you know, all my friends who have been, we've lost touch, you know. Shout out to my bro Dre out there in Belgium. You know, I don't talk to him every day, but that was my dog at one point. I know, like, shit I've said, shit he said to me, we always gonna hold with us, you know. No matter how more or less, you know, you become friends, you know. It's always shit to look back on, so I always feel like I'm inspired by people like those people who just spoke with real confidence, like, living or dead. People are going to remember what I'm saying, you know? And so NHO is kind of all encompassing that, all encompassing me and my friends and my upbringing and, like, you know, what happened in apartment 3104. Like, that's why NHO and 3104 go together because, you know, in Mike's apartment, like, I remember my homie Mike, you know, his mom, he was from New York and he moved to Atlanta, but his mom still lived there and he stayed alone in the apartment. And so, I mean, we're fucking high schoolers and we got an apartment to hang out in. Everybody knows what was happening there. You know, we was smoking weed with adults not around. You know what I mean? It was like, yes, sick, you know, and shit like that. And coming up with the master plan that is what is today. Everything is today. You know, like, I really feel like I plan my life out. You know, like, this shit's going really good for me, and I hope like I can continue to do that. I always wanted to drop a mixtape called Beamer by next summer because I'm so into manifesting. Like, you could rap about the BMW that you don't have yet if you reference that the BMW's coming. It's like, listen, we need more music like that. Like, I feel like growing up listening to Dom Kennedy, it was always cool to, like, when you're in that middle, you're not a goon, but you're not soft as fuck, but you're not just overtly, like, out there. I feel like Dom Kennedy, we don't really got a lot of rap music like that right now, where it's just, like, chill. Like, shout out Larry June. Actually, let me not discount Larry June and people like
KC Veggies.
Cool. Even local people like, Johnny Adama and Chris Picasso, making that cool rap. Like, I be in the studio listening to Top Tier by Chris Picasso, just cooling it. You know what I mean? Like, I know the lyrics to the songs of friends I have. You know what I mean? But yeah, just more shit like that. Just trying to create something for those people who feel like they're in the middle. The middle of history, the middle of their current moment, the middle of whatever. That's what NHL is about, I guess. To dumb it down, to not dumb it down, but narrow it down, NHL is about being in the middle. Like being influenced by Basquiat, Picasso, all those people, but you still got shit to do. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's still more ground to cover. Like, I feel like there are artists who over time have done this thing where they're all encompassing. And so to me, it goes like Leonardo da Vinci. That's like the OG of this whole, like, I'm going to do it all thing. And I think after Leonardo, I'm going to give it to Marcel Duchamp, Then after Duchamp, I think I'm going to call Warhol kind of the idea of being so influenced that you just make a whole new other thing. And I guess after Warhol, you got V. And then, I don't think I'm giving Virgil a lot of credit. Like, obviously, being like a young black man, like, I'm going to hold him at a high regard. It was, like, crazy. Like, I got a Louis Vuitton bag, and, like, that shit was more dope when Virgil was the head of Louis Vuitton. Like, when he died, I was like, damn, like, this shit ain't even as fire as I felt like it was 2 months ago, Because it was really inspiring to see someone that looks like me at the head of a fashion house like that. So, and shit, man, like, I'm hoping that, like, one day we look back on this video and, like, it's like, after Virgil, it's Raheem or Abstract Poet, or sometimes it's hard to even figure out the Abstract Poet thing, because y'all know in this day and age, like, your Instagram name becomes who you are. Like, yeah. I was hanging out with my homie Sarah yesterday, and, like, someone walked up and was like, "Aren't you Rare Waterbird?" And I bust out laughing. I was like, bro, like, homie just came up and called you by your IG name. That's wild. But people, I remember at the gallery chat, would be like, damn, it's crazy. Like, people used to be like, oh, I heard about this from Raheem. And now people be like, yo, like, Abstract Poet put me on this spot. And it's so weird, people knowing one version of me and the other version of me, and then both. Close people know, like, it's all the same shit, whatever. But things like that, like, I'm just hoping that, I can even be where those guys are. I'm influenced by a lot that, like, I won't even know what my medium is until I'm, like, 40. I'm 24 now. You know what I mean? So that's just where I'm trying to go. You know what I mean? I'm looking back on history, just waiting my turn. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in the middle. That's NHL.
So I was originally put on to you by Laz Beats because we did a collab project called Lord Slug, and you made the cover for it.
That's
in the
facts.
Old school, like, your collage style that you still use with the tape and everything.
Yeah, shout out to Rob, because that was the first thing I ever used Cover Art Studio for.
Hell yeah, shout out Cover Art Studio app.
Use that shit. Very good for making your cover art, but it has these overlays that I used on the collaboration I did with Bryce, or the commission at that time, because I didn't really know you like that. That was my first interaction with you, probably, besides, like, hearing about you from homies. You know what I mean? Like, Laz hit me up and was like, yo, I'm going to have my homie hit you for this collab. And it was a really cool collage of Lord Slug from Dragon Ball. But this overlay I used was in Cover Art Studio. I was like, damn, like, this shit taking shit to the next level, because a lot of my art I started making on my cell phone because I didn't really have a laptop. And I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to make something,
Those are old, like, the collage pieces that are on your IG, you made, like, on your phone?
All of the collage pieces were made on one of these. You know what I mean? Like, shout out to Apple. Like, rappers be talking about made a milli off the iPhone and shit, and I be dead ass like, bro, I really turned up off the iPhone, you know what I mean? Like, really, that's all you need, kids. Like, believe in yourself no matter what, because, like, I be like, art is fucking crazy that the shit I made with no art supplies like with free art supplies, which is a free app on your phone called Photoshop Mix. Anybody out there, you can do what I did with that app. You know, the collage shit was all made on my cell phone. And then I later on started throwing shit from Photoshop Mix into Procreate and drawing on top of it. But the OG shit is just all on Photoshop. You know, Photoshop on the iPhone, you know. I used to be in that shit so much that when I would look at a white wall, I would see the gray and a white checkerboard. Like, you know, how Kanye said making 5 beats a day for 3 summers. Like, that shit is real, you know, when you get on your grind and you just sit there and go hard, go in, believe in yourself. No matter what you got, people will see that shit and give you more resources, you know. So now that I'm at the point where I have more resources to make my art, it's just really nuts. But all that shit made on the iPhone. You know, iPhone needs to fucking sponsor me. Like, I need one of those made on iPhone commercials or shot on iPhone commercials because, like, you know, really, that would be perfect.
So what was the transition of your artwork just like having more supplies at your disposal? Is that why like the change up kind of?
Well, that and wanting to make like more real art. Like my collage work, for example, if somebody snatches it off the wall and throws it on the ground and the glass breaks, like that just fucks it up. But like if you like knock a painting over, that shit's gonna be straight. Like there's 1,000-year-old paintings out there. You know, you could unstretch this shit, roll it up, throw it in there, have somebody restretch it later. You know, find it over time. Like there's art that I might leave somewhere and forget about, and they become like a lost artifact type shit. So I kind of wanted to make art that can become that you could give to your kid after you pass or whatever. You know, I know people who have oil paintings from their grandparents and shit or whatever was in their collection shit. I know people who got Warhols that got passed down to them, which is crazy. The other day I was at an architecture firm and I walk in and, you know, there's a Warhol right there of the Prime Minister of Israel. And I'm like, damn, that's dope. And he's like, yeah. Like I remember me looking at that. He's like, yeah, it's that. It's that. And that was a cool flex. Shout out to Jordan Behar. You know, he's a cool ass motherfucker. But you know, we'll touch more on that a little later in the podcast because we'll probably get into what I'm doing at the factory. But yeah. So long story short, you know, a lot of the transition came from me just having more courage to just go for it, being less afraid. Like I feel like art is about not being scared of yourself because usually nobody's gonna tell you your shit sucks like you would tell it. Like motherfuckers will lie and say that shit is dope or be like, yeah, it's kind of cool, you know, even if it's minimal. So just having more courage and then having the studio, like I can lay out a big painting on the ground and paint it, you know, at it having a studio. I can't really do that at my house when my roommate's gonna be like, bro, like, can you clean up this painting shit, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, bro, like, you just painted all day and then left all this shit in the living room. Like, come on, you know, shit like that. So just more room to experiment, books, having a space to have, like, get into that mode and not leave it. You know, my studio used to be the garage at my house, but I'm at home. You know, I'm thinking about having to take the trash out. Yeah. You know, but at the studio, I still got to take the trash out, but it's just less of that's not the forefront of this shit. You know, I think having an art studio really, really opened up everything. That was kind of where those things happened. And then, like, you know, of course, like, hanging out with different people, hanging out with a lot of art school kids, like, dating. You know, I had a lot of people I dated went to art schools and, like, them putting me onto that shit, letting me use their resources. You know, waking up and there's a John Claude and Christo book by the bed. Like, okay, you know, sometimes I feel like art is like natural selection or something. Like, I don't know how this happened for me. The first collage I ever made was listening to, what's that song by NERD? Roses are red, yellow, and white. Where have you been all my life? Whatever. And I was like, that would be cool to throw myself in a picture with red, yellow, and white roses. And, you know, I just, like, did that, you know, and then taped it together. And funny enough, on that same album, a few songs before that is called Tape You.
Oh,
you
wow.
know. And so shout out to Pharrell and Chad Hugo and Shay Haley because they really helped my art career with that song. But regardless, I was going to go up. If I didn't think of it then, I would have thought of it somewhere else. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of like where a lot of that collage shit came from. You know, it's interesting. Art can be gifted. You can go seek it out. Sometimes I feel like it chose me, you know, but like it's just really nuts, you know.
So when you were saying, like, we were talking about the early days of like the St. Pete art scene and how there wasn't like too much, how would you say that the creation of like the factory and everything they're doing over there helped like enhance the scene, or at least help from what you're doing?
So I feel like it's not that it was never shit here, but St. Pete is experiencing like this radical change that like everywhere where there was art galleries, like when people like, you know, Rasta and like Derek Donnelly and even Scott had a spot on 600 block, like back in the day, you know, more people who, of course, like it's a lot of motherfuckers who really were a pivotal thing. And I do not want to not name y'all, but obviously like Zulu Painter, all these people who were pivotal to that started getting priced out. So it's less and less art galleries. And what I can say about the factory is bringing back the idea of single standing alone art spaces for St. Pete, because they were here. It's just all this bullshit like priced them out. Like the gallery Misu where I met Laurent got priced out and is now some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like they were doing a lot of weird stuff, raising people's rents double, triple. Like where Daddy Cool used to be, that whole block was made fire by people like Daddy Cool, by the homies from all the artist stuff I just named who really did all those murals and stuff. You know, I think what happened is that it like really got ripped away. You know, the purity, the art spaces, like art galleries. Like my first solo show was at a place called The Bins, which is kind of the only non-art gallery that I will be able to say I have a solo show at. Like I feel like people will come out and respect the art there, but it's still a bar. You know, it's not an art gallery. There are people who own a bar that respect art and know how to like let you set your stuff up in a respectful manner, but it's still not an art gallery. And what the factory I feel like brought back is that feeling of we're at an art gallery. There will be drinks served, but we are at an art gallery. Like somebody said, I can't wait to go to your party. It's like, it's an art show. You know, unfortunately. But I thought of a theory. Having an art show is like it's your birthday because everybody loves you that night. Like it feels so good. Everybody out there, just go for it. Try to have a solo art show. Everybody's like, yo, like shout out to you. I'm proud of you. And the better you do, the more those prouds become sincere. Like I feel like I got a lot of really sincere I'm proud of yous from this last art show. People who are my friends, like my friend London, for example. Like we talk about art on my terms, not on everybody else's terms, you know. And to hear people who are your friends say, yo, like that shit was dope, is better almost than like friends and family hits harder than like, you know, people who respect your work from a different perspective, not knowing you at all. You know, it's just really, it warms your heart. You know, so shout out to art shows, try to have one. You know, but that thing of like being able to, okay, my mom and my fam came to my art show. Like if it's at a place that isn't the factory, like they might not really, not that they wouldn't come, but I'm not trying to invite my mom to my art show at the Bins.
Yeah, it's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe. And I love the Bins and like they're really supportive of the arts and all that stuff. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's different strokes. And I think, you know, it's a shame that places like the Bins have to be like trying to uphold what's left of that art community when everything gets wiped out because people are buying out shit. People are pricing people out. Landlords are like, oh, like I can make a M. Fuck that art gallery, even though they are the reason my shit is worth money. You know, it's so crazy. We see it happen all over the world. It's called gentrification. I think sometimes, like, it only counts when, like, white people who drink PBR get affected by gentrification. You know, we could get into that in another episode, but you feel me. Y'all know what I mean. But, yeah, like, I think what's beautiful about the factory is that it's a place where I had an art show and my mom came. My grandma was on FaceTime with my cousin at the art show, you know. And if my grandma was in St. Pete, she lives in St. Thomas, shout out to the Virgin Islands, she would have been there and been able to come. And she's been by the studio. My granddad, R.I.P., came by the studio and was like, man, you know, this is some hip stuff, you know? And I'm like, hell yeah, my granddad thinks my art is dope. You know what I mean? You know, but it's just cool that the factory is giving opportunities for stuff like that, you know. I've been doing a lot of work there, and a friend of mine named Data Synced, he was like, bro, it's like you're like the cultural director, you know, because you really tied into what's going on the street, on the ground, and as far up as like the mayor, you know what I mean? You really just got to move like that, you know. Things like that, you know. There's really cool stuff that happened, like the Black Coffee thing. Like it was really dope to get to meet Black Coffee, you know. And while I was there, I ended up hanging out with this lady named Lisa who works at the Metropolitan in New York. And like we had a really beautiful conversation about Titian and Duchamp and stuff. And she was like, I got sitting down here to meet Black Coffee and like talk to him, but I didn't expect to have this wonderful conversation about like fine art with you at this concert. And this is like us, like if this is the table is a table, but Black Coffee's like standing here DJing and shit. And me and this lady from the Met Museum is talking about stuff. And like, I've kept in touch with her, and it's just really beautiful that opportunities like that are in St. Pete. The factor is bringing stuff like that to St. Pete. The fairgrounds is a cool thing. Like I grew up in Atlanta. You could go to the World of Coke. My cousins came to visit. We took them to the World of Coke, Georgia Aquarium, all that shit. Now St. Pete has a little. You come to visit St. Pete. Here's your little thing. Here's your thing you can visit. But yeah, that's what I love about the factory. Kara and Jordan really are doing a cool thing. I know that I think sometimes when you're a little bit distant from the ground, it's really hard to make a project that's so involved with the ground, And when I say the ground, I just mean like the people who will become patrons of that. I think they're doing the best they can with the factory. I really hope that in the future the factory becomes more and more, and I love to be involved there no matter what, like, because it's a thing for that community, for the community, like, that shit is not far from where, when I came to visit St. Pete, my sister lived in Jordan Park. That shit's right around the corner. I could have walked there from my sister's house, you know what I mean? And, like, that's really beautiful for me. So now that I'm, like, have a job there, and things like that, I'm just trying to help make it authentic, make it very intentional. Like, I know that, people probably have a lot to possibly say about the factory, but I'm just trying to do a good job to make it more intentional and make everything proper about it, make it a good art space that understands blue chip buyers and understands people who are like, saving up to become a blue chip buyer, Like, it's really beautiful, and the opportunities I've had to have a more professional space to show my work is awesome. It's amazing, and I hope more and more opportunities can be given out to people in St. Pete. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say Takeo is going to be doing something there soon.
Hell yeah,
I'm hoping
shout
that
out
in the
Takeo.
fall, me and Takeo do some collaborative work there, like some more fashion-oriented work. So it's going to be a whole thing. Y'all will see it. But like this painting over here with the, it's like y'all don't know what it looks like, but it's Ebony Davis is whose body this was modeled after. She's a model, and just like that's why I feel like this could be more fashion pieces. But good for, the factory for being a real art space, and, it's not a lot of that left. So I want to say that when speaking about the factory, I would say that they're bringing back something that St. Pete lost, not necessarily creating the first time it's ever existed here, but just really bringing that back and trying their best to like support people like Zulu Painter and the people who kind of were the OGs of it all. I'm hoping I can help bring some more of that into the fold, that intention, that the thing St. Pete needs, and that's putting a lot of responsibility in my own hands, but I care about the community I'm in, If something as big as the factory is going to be in that community, I want to be involved as much as I can to authenticate that and, like, make sure that there's checks and balances, I feel like it's weird, I remember I was at Bandit with the lady who owns the factory, and someone was like, yo, like, what are you doing? Like, is this like a meeting? Like, people immediately know that because it's a strange, exchange. Me and Kara, like, that could be, it's just interesting to see juxtaposition, But that's like what the factory is, I guess. It's still a growing thing, and like, I think over time, it'll grow in multiple directions. But right now, that's what I think it is. That's what I'm trying to make it work as right now. There's a lot of artists there. You guys should come support them during Art Walk every second Saturday, typically. Shout out to like Little Bull, shout out to Leroy, shout out to Jack, everybody who's there. You all know who you are. Hopefully, you guys watch this and repost it or something. But shout out to everybody at the factory. Shout out to Daddy Cool Records. Shout out to Fairgrounds. All that. I gave a guy who worked at the Fairgrounds some art yesterday. He came to my show. I want to say right after he got off work, and I was like, "Damn, bro, like that's dope." Like, even though you work right where the show was, you came back after, and I gave him the 777 painting I did because it was his lucky day.
Oh, word, hell yeah.
Shout out to him. And what's crazy is you never know who you're being nice to, because I went out after that, and this girl, Michaela, she's like, yo, you gave my brother some art today. Like, that's dope, and you never know. Like, I didn't do that shit for somebody to tell me about it later, but that's really nice to know that, like, he texted, she's like, yo, so-and-so gave me some art, like, that's hella dope. So shout out to bro at the factory who works at the Fairgrounds. I want to say his name is Jarrah. Shout out to Jarrah.
Oh, I think I know him. So there's an iconic photo that Laurent took of you, OG Chris Picasso, and Gallardo at one of your art shows. Can we talk a little bit about that art show? Because I don't know much about it.
Hey, man.
That shit's iconic, though.
Don't Gamble with Love was the title of that art show. I have that tattoo on my forearm right here, but I was just going through a lot with love. Like, you know, a lot of art is really powered by that shit. I'll tell you that. Like, from being at a dinner and, like, being confused because, like, your love life is maybe weird, you know, looking across the table and then next to you and being like, fuck, what am I doing? You know, what am I allowing my emotions to be? That's why I love Future and Frank Ocean. I feel like they're the most vulnerable musicians about love and, like, the really fucked up parts about it. You know, like, don't gamble with that shit because if you lose hard. If you win big, but it's hard. But Don't Gamble with Love means that I'm going to still do it, you know. So that was in the picture is OG, Gallardo, me, and we're in front of the title space in the art space that this photo is taken in. It says, Don't Gamble with Love, an art show by Abstract Poet. And that's what the picture he's talking about is, man, that show was crazy. Fucking my best art show up until the one I just recently had. My first art show at the Benz, I didn't sell shit, and that is humbling. Having an art show, it's up for the whole month. People looking at it, they didn't buy shit, you know. It is what it is.
It happens,
you know,
man.
Fast forward a little bit later, I do a lot of community work. That really ups I would say, makes people realize I'm a person who isn't just like a guy you see at the Benz or whatever the fuck. I'm a community member, you know. All the stuff I did during the summer of 2020, it's kind of like that really helped me. I think people be like, yo, like, Raheem's a human, you know, because before that, I probably was the guy you saw, like, with the screw face, you know what I mean? Like, I remember my ex-girlfriend, she was like, yeah, like, I would always just see, like, we were looking at this book, a Beatles book, and it was Ringo Starr smoking a cigarette. And she was like, that's how I used to just see you out. Like, you would just kind of be like, you know, with the, you know, that face, you know what I mean, of intensity. And I kind of opened up and I softened up. Like, after my dad died, like, a lot of shit, like, really, like, I became a darker, colder person, you know. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, I always think about, like, like, it was a painting, I mean, a collage I made that was all in black and white. And I think it was, like, really inspired by all the ashes from every spliff I smoked after my dad died. Like, I remember, shout out to, like, the relationship went shit, but I always remember that, like, you know, when my dad died, someone was the same person who took me to see him, you know, hung out with me the day he died. And I remember just being, like, on top of the roof of Bloom or Paper Crane, whatever y'all know it as, crying my eyes out. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like, you know, that callous nature kind of got lifted in the summer of 2020 a little bit. I started being a little more happy, you know, because, you know, the black pants, white T-shirt thing just came from dark times. You know, I remember someone being like, yo, what's that about? And being like, well, I was moving around a lot, and, like, I left my colorful clothes somewhere. You know, shout out to where I was staying. You know, y'all really looked out for me, but I left my colorful clothes at Adam and B and Zooey's house, you know, and then I just started wearing that black pants, white shirt, and that just became who I was, you know, because that's all I had. And someone was like, damn, that's kind of a sad story, bro. I thought it was going to be some dope art shit, you know, but to get back on track, what exactly was the question?
Oh, so just talk a little bit more about that art
Oh, yeah.
show.
Okay, so Don't Gamble with Love. Damn, you know, we could get really sidetracked easily. Don't Gamble with Love was just an art show at the Benz. Fucking my best art show to date at that time. Me and Laurent painted the wall right before, and I was so nervous. Like, shout out to Gordy. Gordy seen me, like, in my most anxiety. Was like, Gordy, this shit look trash on the wall. He was like, nah, it's dope. Just, it's calm. Go for it. And at the end of the painting that shit, I really think that helped the art look cooler. It's the shit you see on the wall in the background of the picture Bryce is talking about, or Jit Camp. I don't know if am I allowed to call you by your name?
Whatever, yeah.
Shout out to Jit Camp. Most supportive person in St. Pete. I always say if we had 1,000 more Jit Camps, like, everybody would be on in St. Pete, but we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. You know, that art show, like, I really, like I said, sold nothing. In 2 days, my art show, everything was gone. You know, like, shout out to my ex-girlfriend at the time. I would have never done this, but she was like, yo, like, let's go out to dinner before your show. Invite your friends. I'll get a reservation for you. like shit I wouldn't do for myself. But by the time I got back from dinner, like half that shit was gone. That felt beautiful, and that was my most successful art show to date, But what's crazy is like when you change up your art, when you believe in yourself more, the shit I made, like one painting was worth more than everything on the wall at the bins that night, And I think it's really beautiful to believe in yourself enough to trust that somebody would care about your art enough to spend some real money on it. And there's still going to always be art in that 150, 200 range, like all the stuff at the bins was. There'll be stuff like the Felix the Cat paintings, because they're everybody's favorite paintings, I put them at 2K, and it's like, I'm just, challenging myself to say, okay, like, I really believe in this art, like, it's going to work, because, I just know what it's like to, like, not sell shit, to have everybody be like, yo, like, this shit is dope, but, like, it's not dope enough yet for people to buy it, and they'll be like, all right, we're going to make this shit dope enough for people to buy it. And people will be like, damn, I can't get one, it's all gone? Yes, this shit's all gone, fam. It's done.
Snooze, you lose.
You snooze, you lose, exactly. And so, Don't Gamble with Love, dope-ass art show. It was beautiful. All my friends came out. It was lit, of course, just like the recent show was. But it was like a cool vibe, a little something different. That's why that photo looks so cool, because it's just like, that's Glockhampton right there. That's the ultimate boy band. That photo, those photos always look the coolest, That's a reference to another photo of me, OG. I want to say Adama is in that, and Gallardo, and maybe Laurent. And the caption, somebody said Glockhampton.
Man, I got to find that one.
Yeah. But shout out to Brockhampton. I think they're not even around anymore. But I never really listened to Brockhampton. You ever listen to Brockhampton?
I like a couple of their songs, but I'm not like digging through like the album.
I feel like I didn't listen to them because Tyler and Odd Future was what Brockhampton was for like motherfuckers. T and them did that for me. And shout out to Tyler.
Same.
I feel like really it was so weird when like everything that I was already doing started to become cool, and motherfuckers was like, the cool girls at school were like, am I like a hipster? I'm like, no. Or like, I remember this kid was like, Dalton was like, what do you think about so-and-so? And she goes, nah, Raheem probably likes those Tumblr girls. And she was like, like super, 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 super bad high school girl. You know what I mean? Like conventional standards of beauty is now being challenged by what things like the internet and Tumblr, these my personality is my beauty type looks. People who have been told they're beautiful their whole life are feeling challenged by that. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy how life can change. Everybody believe in yourself. Shit, that's what I think. So yeah. So
how'd you get tapped in with Gallardo? Because I know he's St. Pete OG. You know what I mean? He's been doing shit for a while.
So there's this dude named Complex who would come around Misu, and I want to say he brought Gallardo over there, and I met Gallardo, and I think I just would hang out with him a lot. He would give me a lot of advice on art and shit, because I was like 20, and I would always ask him a lot of questions. And I remember one day I said something, and he was like, that I don't remember what he said, but I think he didn't know how old I was. And when I told him I was 20, he realized why I asked the type of questions I asked, because, and it shows a lot about, range of questions, like depending on who the person is, you can give them a little more leeway. Like I wouldn't be talking about my family not believing me enough if I'm not a 20-year-old kid, like, excuse me, that's some like young bullshit, and I remember him being like, okay, I feel you, like I understand you, kid, like here, like I'm gonna give you advice. Like he was the person who told me, like, if you really want to believe in your art shit, quit your fucking job and make art the only way you can eat and see what happens. And I did that a few times. God bless me that like over the pandemic, that was my last stint on the job. It's so crazy. That was a crazy time, because shout out to Bailey, who was just in the last art show. I remember I was with Bailey, Summer, Casey, and Jess and Sam. And Casey and Sam are in a band called Fever Beam. Summer is one of their friends. Bailey is also a musician and artist who was in that last show. We're all at the beach, and I fucked my ankle up, so I couldn't work. And I was the first person to kind of leave off when COVID happened, because I remember there was a day where all my friends was at the park in London. Shout out to London, was like, Raheem, like, you're at a restaurant and it's COVID. Like, you probably shouldn't be doing that. And part of me was just like, man, I'm just trying to hang out with London and my friends at the park. Like, and it was like, you don't have to be here. It's not, you're not going to get fired if you say you don't want to be at work for a few weeks because of COVID. Oh, cool. You know, I was doing my art shit a little bit, so I had a little bit to sustain me. So thank God, you know, and after COVID, after that happened, so I fucked up my ankle and I couldn't go back to work. And then the protesting shit started happening. And I remember, like, my manager at Hawkers tried to fuck out of me, like, was like, you don't want to come to work. I saw you at a protest. And I'm like, are you fucking dumb? Like, I literally was like, one, all you should be doing is saying, like, and they were an older white lady. I was like, really, all you should be doing is saying, like, damn, good for you that you had the courage to stand up for your shit. You know, because I was the last person to the police station, but I spoke on the steps at the police station that day. Shout out to the Dream Defenders. You know, they gave me the mic, you know, had me speak about, like, how police brutality affects black women, both in the sense of how they're not looked on as victims of these things. And, you know, there are a lot of people who are the cornerstone of that grieving. Like, you know, they're the moms who, like, Trayvon Martin's mom is a black woman, you know? You know what I mean? Like, all that stuff, how that ties in, because a lot of times in the world, black women are neglected. We don't need that. And so, yeah, like, after that, after they tried to fuck out of me, I was like, okay, I'm extending my stay away from work as much as possible. And eventually, I kind of got terminated probably, or they were talking shit. And I was in the protest time, and I was like, yo, man, like, I'm going to just do this, you know? And so that was me not working there anymore, and I just ran the art thing up. Of course, you know, the STEMI helped a little bit throughout that time. STEMI floated me up until that art show where I sold, like, everything in 2 days. I was like, damn, boy, I made that quick, $1,200. I ain't never done that before.
Quick flip.
I be hearing rappers talk about making money quick, you know. Oh, my God, how did I do this? You know, I always say, like, thank God that I found art. You know, my older brother, you know, free him, is at summer camp right now. He'll be there for a little bit. But I feel like this country is so fucked up that, like, when he moved from St. Thomas to St. Pete, all that was there for him was to do what he had to do. You know what I mean? And for me, when I moved here, like, I was in a bind, bro. Like, 18, fresh out of high school. Like, what the fuck do I do? Thank God this art shit worked. You know, I remember telling people, like, bro, like, I bet the house on shit when I didn't even have nothing. I did a blind bet on this shit, you know. Gave my whole life to art, you know. So I really feel thankful that it's working, you know. It's going good for me, bro. Like, I really, like, starved about this shit, you know what I mean? And now to be able to make enough money to pay my rent and go eat, and, like, I really want a pair of tabbies. I low-key could buy a pair of tabbies, but I'm going to probably save up for something more responsible. You know, I want to meet Westside Gunn this year. Like, on my list of shit, it was to sell 10 originals. In 2022, this is what I want to happen. Sell 10 original paintings, sell 50 shirts, 100 prints, meet Westside Gunn, buy some tabbies in no order. Things are going good. I might be going to Atlanta in May to see Westside Gunn, so hopefully I get to meet Westside Gunn. That'll be dope. We'll talk about that later. But Westside Gunn is, like, one of my favorite rappers. You know, as Bryce knows, like, all my posts will be, like, Westside Gunn albums. Like, man, like, even to the point where Pierce, who is the husband of the owner of the fairgrounds, Liz Dimmitt, he used to be an art collector, and I showed him, like, the 400 million plus tax intro to Westside Gunn album, and he was like, yo, I know that voice because I know homie who did that. And what's wild is that I'm, like, talking to him about his art shit. I'm like, yo, bro, like, what kind of paintings have you seen? Like, kind of being like, oh, well, maybe he hasn't seen the Salvatore Mundi, so let me not ask about that. Ask about that shit as a joke, low-key. And he's like, yeah, fam, like, I seen that painting. The painting that, the most expensive painting ever is the Salvatore Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci. Well, the most painting ever sold or whatever. And he told me a bunch of cool shit, like, about how that painting is just fucked, and everybody who owns that shit is fucked, and it's missing. But he was like, I'm glad I started to have nothing to do with that. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm sure he would be cool with me saying all that, but it was dope to, like, be that close to somebody who, even showing him Westside Gunn, you know, when I showed John, the way I found out about Caravaggio was because the cover of Pray for Paris is a Caravaggio painting. One of my favorite paintings ever now is Caravaggio's David with the Head of Goliath, which is on view in Vienna. If you ever get to go out to Vienna, that's where I want to go one day to see this painting. On view in Vienna, and it's a painting of David holding the head of Goliath with the sword over his shit, you know. But he threw guns, chains over David, you know. And I remember showing Johnny, who owns Quality Tattooing, where I've gotten most of my tattoo work done and a lot of art lessons. He hands me, after I showed him that cover, I was like, man, this shit's dope. But the Photoshop could have been better. I'd be like, Virgil, why the fuck did you do that? You know, but he was like, oh, that's a Caravaggio painting, and hands me a Caravaggio book. And I just go crazy on Baroque art after that, putting people on. That's all I wanted to talk about. And then it started becoming where I wanted to make Baroque themes, but not in that style because, like, you know, I'm not Caravaggio. I'm not all those guys, you know. But it's like I realized the beauty that they were trying to translate. Like, on my birthday, most recently, I was at a restaurant called Pia's, and I was, like, looking at a friend of mine, a really dear friend named Nika, and it was a candlelight. You know, she was my girlfriend at the time. It was candlelight, and I was like, fuck, I was on acid. This is what those dudes were trying to paint, that Italian vibe. Like, Pia's is an Italian restaurant, so it's no, like, slight chance that shit worked out like that. You know, but it was crazy to see that light and that real light. Like, that's what Baroque painting is about. Like, Caravaggio is called the master light for that reason. You know what I mean? And just to be able to really try to capture that essence, like what they're talking about is painting a candlelight dinner, but how do I say this is a candlelight dinner without painting a candlelight dinner? I feel like that's what my collages is all about. The collage work was like, I always said when I was a kid, because people didn't really understand me, and it's like art is the best thing, because if you can't vocally express yourself without people challenging you with art, it means what you want it to mean. And so the collages always have these messages hidden in them, and like I think that's really dope. That's my way of, you know, I always said if it's a theme park, like, you know, not Morty's Mind Blowers, but the Pirates of the Pancreas episode of Rick and Morty, how they go into that guy's body and it's a theme park. I wanted my brain to be a theme park. So, like, people who don't understand me just come to my theme park. You feel me? Like, that's what those collages are. You getting to go into my brain, you know. That's what's happening. I created my own world that I wanted to see because it wasn't out there, you know. So the collage work was just me creating that work, you know, before I even knew what Baroque was, really. I was trying to create one thing but in another technique. So now with my paintings, like the Shedding Light on Titian, that is on view at my art show right now, and if it doesn't sell, it'll be on view probably outside of the studio, but let's hope that sells. Or I might give that to my grandma. She loves Jesus. But that kind of work was me doing an ode to Baroque art, you know what I mean, without being able to do that. So Baroque composition and the darkness of it, but in a different technique, and to shed light on that old artwork that kind of has been either lost or defines what art means to this day. Like, those people died long ago, but their work still lasts. That's why I kind of want to be a painter, because, like, somebody could roll a canvas up and throw it in a, you know, attic for years and years and years, and then it's still there, you know. So I really love art for that reason.
All right, bro. So before we wrap it up, you said you wanted to talk a little bit about how you wish there was, like, more people like Jit Camp and stuff like that. So let's get into that.
For sure. Like, I feel like this is a city where we really have to support each other. By this city, I mean St. Petersburg, if you are watching this from somewhere else. You know, communities everywhere need to believe in each other, support each other as much as they can. You know, in places like this, I feel like, because now some money's coming in, but I feel like it was on like 5 checks to grab, you know, before, as opposed to like New York, where there's a bunch of them. And people will be more competition-esque. And I feel like it's beautiful to, like, not have any competition and let everything rise, support everybody. I feel like, you know, Jit Camp's podcast and the blog supports a lot of people who you might not know, and some you do know, you know, and not even know personally, but know their name as an artist or whatever. You know, like, it's so crazy, people knowing me as an artist, like, and I feel like Jit Camp's career is making sure everybody's careers go noticed. Like, yesterday, some guys, like, were like, yo, we're opening a bar, we're from Miami. And then as I walk away, I hear the dude they were with be like, yeah, that guy's an artist, like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, damn, is that what's going on now? Like, that's my life? Cool. You know, but I just feel like people like Jit Camp have to be supported. We need more people to be inspired by the level of support that he gives to the community, because I feel like people find out about it, you know, through people like him. Like, there's always been blogs and message boards and newsletters and zines and things like that that inform you about what's coming next, what's happening, who's up next. You know, so we need to always give these people their flowers, you know, while they're still doing this small thing, because one day, you know, maybe Jit Camp might go stupid. You know, maybe he rebrands into the more mature version of Jit Camp. You know, maybe he's no longer a Jit anymore. You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things where I feel like this city can be supported. Like, there's a scorpion painting I have, and I always love that he references scorpions, like, in the emojis he drops. So I want to gift that painting to him. But I feel like it's because, like, having art ain't about, if you got wealth isn't about a dollar sign. You know, it's like of the heart and the mind. You know what I mean? Kind of like the BBC shit. You know, Billionaire Boys Club don't mean you a billionaire of the pocket, but you a billionaire of the mind, you know, and of the heart. And I feel like people deserve to be able to have things like that's why I gave that guy Gerard the art, no matter what, because I felt like that was a cool moment. Him coming to the gallery and be like, yo, let me get a flick with you in the gallery. I'm like, damn, hell yeah, bro. And here, take some art, you know, for free. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like more people need to understand that art, being elite isn't about having money. Being an elite person is like, being a wealthy person is about being good so that no matter what, you know, you always going to eat. People always going to show you love. I feel like, you know, after doing all that protesting shit, people show me mad love and, like, respected me off of some shit I didn't have to do. You know what I mean? I didn't expect anything to come from that. I just happened to be reading a lot of crazy good books right before all that shit went down and was armed with the knowledge to help. And so I did. But, you know, I just feel like more people like Jit Camp need to be there. More people need to read up on the podcast because I just think it's amazing for somebody to, you know, kind of, I talk about wanting to be, like, here to support other artists, but this is someone who's really supporting other artists in a major way. So I just want to shed as much light on that as I can. You know, that's why I wanted to end it off on that note because, you know, I just feel like selfless care about your community is beautiful. You know, really betting on yourself and the people around you is beautiful. You know, so that's why I wanted to thank Jit Camp for having me on the podcast, one, and just always being a cornerstone for St. Pete's community. You know, people really, need to check it out more, you know. I can't wait for the movie night that's coming soon. I heard people talking about it that I'm like, damn, like, shout out to Jit Camp. Like, you know, I heard, like, this girl I have a crush on who, like, got this cool Margiela jacket talking about going to your shit. And I'm like, oh, sick.
Really?
You know what I
Hell
mean?
yeah,
that's what I said. Listen.
Bro, Jit Cinema, pull up.
Jit Cinema, like I said before, this is my new thing. Like, after Gallardo's art show, we're, you know, we'll be transparent here. I took a photo of this girl who I put in a painting one time, right? And at Gallardo's art show, and I was thinking, like, bro, like, this needs to be a market, like, of you should have been there because that person you've been waiting to have a conversation with is going to be at the art show, and you're going to be sick as fuck when their picture is there, and you're like, fuck, so-and-so was there, I should have went. Mm-hmm. You know, don't have that FOMO. Just come to Jit Cinema because, like I said about my show, your Instagram crush will be there. I don't know when this is going to get released, but I want to say the closing show for The Usual Suspects is on the 28th. It'll be a little later. We're going to have some more fun faces. I talked to DJ Donnie Love about maybe spinning there. You know, nothing's been super duper locked in, but we're aiming at the 28th at the factory again. Bigger, better than the opening show. Come show some support. Come with your pockets full and your heart open, you know. Come with your heart open, you know, most importantly, though. Because even if you're not there to buy something, maybe art's not your thing, but you love to, like, look at it. You know, you don't want to own it, but you're kind of getting into it. Like, definitely come out, you know, and come out to the movie night. Your IG crush will be at both of those. I know mine was at both of them, or, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel. I love what's going on in St. Pete. I hope I can keep being a big member of it. Like I always said, like, I can't go back to Atlanta until I make a real mark on the city, you know? And so I think that's what's going on, you know, working with people like Jit Camp, hanging out with, you know, Laurent, Gallardo, James, like, our, like, weird, crazy art rap pack that's been going on. Shout out to my boy Takeo. We got some crazy shit coming. Like, you know, man, like, I did the fucking center panel of the fucking Last Supper, bro. Like, you know, I'm doing this art shit for life, and, like, whatever that means is what it's going to continue to mean. And, like, that's kind of where I want to leave it off because, you know, all the cool art ideas have been done. All the best paintings to paint, like, the Last Supper, that's, like, the of shit, you know, but to bring that over one of Takeo's abstractions and then the conversation from that, like the conversation of these two black kids, like, remaking Leonardo's, you know, with some shit that I got tattooed on my arm from a Sailor Jerry book in the corner. You know what I mean? Like, it's just different. So I want to say, everybody, one, support yourself, support your friends, love yourself, drink water. You know, if you can go to the doctor, do that. I don't always think about that kind of stuff. You know, set a reminder, always eat if you can eat, you know, and you know, support your friends, man. That's what I'm all about. My art show, like there's stuff that we didn't even touch on, but all of that was to give somebody something they could Google, you know, give somebody something that like, just like I got obsessed with Baroque work, just like I got obsessed with Duchamp, just like I got obsessed with all these things, you know, like I made something that is in New York at a museum that one of my homies who was visiting, he's like, damn, this shit is like the thing you made, but I don't think he was more stoked on that being something I made than Marcel Duchamp, who inspired me to make it. So it's just like my art is about opening up conversations, opening up beautiful moments, you know, moments with your lovers, moments with your family, moments with your friends. Like just use that shit to the best of your advantage because, you know, we only here for as long as we here. And, you know, that's all I got to say, man. You know, shout out to Jit Camp for having me. Shout out to everybody who supported me over the years. Shout out to my mom, my dad, all that shit. You know, if they watch it, excuse the language. My mom knows I curse. I said shit during my speech at the show. You know what I mean? But I'm just in a good place, man. I want to continue to feel like that. Carrying this energy on, you know, like hopefully, you know, we keep continuing to go great, go bigger and better. I always say the themes stay the same, but the stakes get higher. And so keep that saying dear to you because it's true. You know, I've always had art shows, but now it's at higher stakes. You know what I mean? There's more money at stake. There's more people involved. There's bigger conversations around the art I make, things like that. So just believe in yourself, stay focused, stay consistent, and, you know, believe in yourself. I said that a bunch, so really remember that.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, bro. It definitely won't be the last time. We'll have to run it back soon. And that's been episode 11 of the Jit Camp Bonfire Podcast. You can find all his work at ABSTRACTPOET on IG.
Yes. Or you can come to the factory. Most times I'll be there in my studio. Send me a message on Instagram before you do that because sometimes I'm going to be there listening to Westside Gun, kind of in that mode, you know, and I'm not really going to be trying to, you know, or there might be no music on. You know what I mean? That's when you're really in the zone. Everybody that's been locked in before knows that you only play music because you remember that one time you was in the zone and that music was playing, but you don't need shit to be locked in, you know? Sometimes it's just the four walls and your whatever you're making. Yeah, man. Shout out to Jit Camp. I had to wear my Interview magazine T-shirt for the interview because, you know, that's where we're going. It was only
right.
So
you can find all my work at JitCamp727 and on JitCamp.com where a Jit can be a Jit. Peace.
I'm Kodak Black, but when you see me, I'm white.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, bro. You killed it.
Did you expect Kodak to be on the new Kendrick?
Nah.
That was kind of dope.
It was cool how he like narrated it.
Yeah. I love how he talked.